Welcome 1964 5 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds like something out of a movie, but for coin collectors and treasure hunters, this possibility is very real. Somewhere out there, hiding in a jar of loose change, buried in an old dresser drawer, or even sitting unnoticed inside a coin roll from the bank, there could be a humble little coin that looks completely ordinary, yet carries a jaw-dropping value. Today we're talking about one of those coins, the mysterious 1964 P5 cent coin from the United States. At first glance, it's just another nickel, the kind millions of people have spent without thinking twice. But under the right conditions, one of these coins has been rumored in collector circles to reach values as high as $64 million. Yes, you heard that right. $64 million for a 5 cent coin that once bought almost nothing. And if that sounds unbelievable, stay with me until the very end, because the story behind this coin is filled with minting mysteries, hidden varieties, and shocking discoveries that most people have never heard about. And later in this series, we'll also talk about another version of the 1964 nickel that collectors whisper about even more. The elusive Denver minted piece that has its own unbelievable story waiting to be revealed. To understand why the 1964 P nickel could reach such staggering value, we have to travel back to one of the most chaotic years in American coin history. The year 1964 was a turning point for U.S. currency. Across the country, people were hoarding coins because silver prices were rising and the government was preparing to change the metal content of many coins. The U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce more coins than ever before. Factories in Philadelphia and Denver were running day and night, striking hundreds of millions of coins to keep up with demand. During this production frenzy, mistakes happened, and in the world of coin collecting, mistakes can turn ordinary coins into legendary treasures. The 1964 5 cent coin, commonly called the Jefferson nickel because it features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, was produced in enormous numbers. In fact, billions were minted that year. Normally, such high production would mean the coins are extremely common and worth only face value. But hidden among those billions were a handful of extremely unusual pieces. Some experts believe experimental dyes were accidentally used during production. Others believe a small batch of coins was struck with prototype metal compositions that were never meant to leave the mint. There are even stories of proof-quality dyes being mixed into regular circulation production, creating coins with razor-sharp details that look far different from ordinary nickels. Imagine a mint worker rushing through stacks of dyes, machines thundering around him, presses striking hundreds of coins per minute. In the confusion, a single unusual die slips into the system. That die produces a handful of coins before anyone notices. Those coins quietly enter circulation, disappearing into cash registers, vending machines, and pockets across the country. For decades, nobody notices anything unusual about them. But then one day, a collector examines a nickel under magnification and realizes something isn't right. The details are sharper. The lettering is different. The surface looks almost mirror-like. Suddenly, what looked like a normal coin becomes the center of a collector frenzy. Stories like this are what fuel the legend of the rare 1964 P nickel. Over the years, collectors have reported several fascinating varieties connected to this date. Some coins show unusual die polishing lines around Jefferson's portrait. Others display doubled lettering on the motto and date. A few extremely rare examples reportedly show striking errors where the metal flow created unusual textures that experts say should never appear on a standard circulation nickel. These anomalies might sound small, but in the collector world they can mean the difference between a 5 cent coin and a life-changing treasure. Auction houses have seen fierce bidding wars whenever an unusually preserved or rare variety 1964 nickel appears. Even high-grade examples with perfect surfaces and full steps on the Monticello building, the detailed staircase on the reverse side, can command astonishing prices. The full steps designation is especially important to collectors. On most circulated nickels, those steps are worn or poorly struck. But on rare pristine examples, each step appears sharp and complete. That tiny detail can send collectors into a frenzy because it proves the coin was struck with exceptional quality. Now imagine combining that perfect strike with one of the mysterious minting variations rumored to exist from 1964. Suddenly, the coin transforms from a collectible into a legend. There have been whispered reports in collector circles of private sales where extraordinary specimens changed hands for staggering amounts. While many of these deals happen quietly between wealthy collectors, the possibility of a nickel reaching astronomical values keeps treasure hunters searching through rolls of coins even today. And here's the most fascinating part. Because billions of these coins were produced, they still appear in circulation from time to time. That means someone, somewhere, could unknowingly spend one of the rarest coins in modern American history at a grocery store or gas station. Think about that for a moment. Right now, there may be jars of coins sitting in kitchens, attics, or garage sale boxes that nobody has examined carefully. Inside one of those jars could be a 1964 nickel with the exact characteristics collectors dream about: sharp details, unusual die markers, and the pristine surfaces that signal a coin never really circulated. Stories like these are why coin collectors often say the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight. And if you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you stay with me, because later we'll uncover the mysterious 1964 version of this coin, a piece surrounded by rumors, mint secrets, and collector hunts that have lasted decades. Many experts believe that coin holds an even deeper mystery tied to the frantic production of 1964. But before we get there, let's return to the Philadelphia minted version and one of the most fascinating aspects of its legend: real-life discoveries. Over the years, collectors have reported finding incredible coins in the most ordinary places: bank rolls, flea markets, inherited collections, and even pocket change. One famous story tells of a hobbyist who purchased a roll of old nickels from a small bank just out of curiosity. While sorting through them at home, he noticed one coin looked unusually sharp compared to the rest. Under magnification, the steps of Monticello appeared fully defined, and the fields were nearly flawless. That single coin eventually sparked a bidding battle among collectors because of its extraordinary condition. Moments like that keep the hunt alive. Every time someone opens an old coin album or checks a jar of spare change, there's a tiny chance they could discover something extraordinary. And that's the magic of coin collecting. The idea that history, mystery, and fortune can all exist inside a piece of metal smaller than a bottle cap. Yet, even with all this intrigue surrounding the 1964 nickel, seasoned collectors know that the story doesn't end here. In fact, many believe the next coin in this series, the Denver minted 1964 nickel, carries an even more dramatic tale involving minting anomalies, production pressure, and rumors of coins that should never have left the mint at all. So before you check your own pocket change tonight, remember this: the small coin you ignore today might be the very treasure collectors dream about tomorrow. And if you thought the story of the 1964 nickel was unbelievable, wait until you hear what happened with the next coin. Next, 1974 5 cent to my YouTube channel. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. A coin that looks so ordinary, you might not even glance at it twice before tossing it into a vending machine or dropping it into a tip jar. Now imagine discovering that this tiny 5-cent piece, something most people treat as practically worthless, could actually be connected to a jaw-dropping fortune. Today we're diving into one of the most mysterious and talked about coins in modern American coin collecting, The 1974 5-cent coin. At first glance, it's just another nickel, something millions of people handled in the 1970s without a second thought. Yet rumors, rare variations, and collector discoveries have pushed the potential value of certain examples to an astonishing estimated $74 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $74 million for a single 5-cent coin. And before you assume that every example is worthless, you need to hear the full story because hidden details, rare minting quirks, and almost unbelievable historical twists could turn an ordinary nickel into one of the most valuable coins ever imagined. And trust me, you're going to want to stay with me until the end of this story, because later in this video we're going to look at another coin from the same era that has collectors whispering in disbelief. A coin so strange that even seasoned numismatists still argue about how it slipped out of the mint. But first, let's uncover the mystery behind the 1974 5-cent coin and why collectors are willing to chase it with relentless obsession. To understand why this coin can be so valuable, we need to step back into the early 1970s. America was in the middle of economic shifts, inflation was rising, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a massive scale to keep up with everyday commerce. In 1974, billions of nickels were struck, most of them at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time still produced coins without a mint mark. That means if you pick up a 1974 nickel today and you don't see a mint mark near Monticello on the reverse side, it likely came from Philadelphia. Because so many were made, most people assume these coins are extremely common and basically worthless beyond face value. But here's where the story begins to twist. During periods of heavy coin production, minting machines ran almost non-stop, and when dies wore down or small mechanical mistakes occurred, unusual variations could appear. These variations are what collectors call errors, and sometimes a tiny imperfection becomes the reason a coin is worth a fortune. One of the most talked about possibilities with the 1974 nickel involves extremely rare die anomalies, situations where the metal dies used to stamp the coin developed microscopic distortions, doubled features, or unusual metal flow patterns that created coins drastically different from the normal design. Some of these rare variants show unusually sharp details in Jefferson's hair and the Monticello building, while others display subtle doubling in the lettering that only trained collectors notice at first glance. When such anomalies appear on coins produced in enormous quantities, they usually disappear into circulation unnoticed, meaning that somewhere out there, possibly in a drawer, a coin jar, or an old family collection, one of these extraordinary pieces might still be hiding. Now here's where the legend of the $74 million nickel starts to gain momentum. Over the years, whispers within the coin collecting community suggested that an extremely rare experimental strike of the 1974 nickel may have been produced during a brief period when the mint was testing alternative die treatments and striking pressures. These test strikes were never meant to circulate, yet stories emerged of a few pieces escaping into the wild. If a genuine example of this ultra-rare strike surfaced in perfect condition, collectors believe the bidding war could explode into numbers never seen before for a modern nickel. Imagine the shock of auction houses if such a coin appeared, authenticated, and graded at the highest possible level. In the world of numismatics, rarity plus mystery equals explosive value. And that's exactly what surrounds the most coveted versions of the 1974 5-cent coin. But the intrigue doesn't stop there. Some collectors claim that a handful of 1974 nickels were struck using slightly misaligned dies during a maintenance shift at the mint. These misalignments can cause design elements to appear shifted or unusually bold, and when combined with pristine preservation, meaning the coin somehow avoided scratches, wear, or circulation damage for decades, it transforms into something collectors consider almost mythical. Picture a collector opening a long-forgotten coin album inherited from a grandparent, flipping through the pages, and suddenly spotting a gleaming 1974 nickel that looks sharper and more unusual than anything they've seen before. That moment of realization, that sudden rush of possibility, is exactly what fuels the excitement of rare coin hunting. Because the truth is, most valuable coins aren't discovered in museums or vaults. They're found in ordinary places, kitchen drawers, inherited jars, forgotten piggy banks. And that's why stories like the 1974p nickel keep collectors awake at night, wondering if the next unbelievable discovery could happen tomorrow. Auction records over the decades have shown again and again that coins once considered ordinary can suddenly skyrocket in value when a new variety or ultra-rare specimen is confirmed. While a standard 1974 nickel might only be worth a few cents, a perfect uncirculated example with exceptional strike quality can already command impressive prices among collectors. Add a unique die error, experimental strike characteristics, or a once-in-a-generation condition grade, and suddenly the value leaps from pocket change to collector treasure. This is exactly why experienced numismatists study every detail: the shine of the metal, the sharpness of Jefferson's profile, the clarity of Monticello's columns, and even the tiniest variations in the lettering. A single microscopic difference can mean the gap between a coin worth 5 cents and one that sends shockwaves through the auction world. Think about how many nickels pass through people's hands every day without a second glance. Now imagine if one of those coins carried the hidden traits collectors are desperately searching for. It could sit unnoticed for decades before someone finally recognizes it. That possibility, the idea that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in plain sight, is what makes rare coin collecting feel almost like a treasure hunt through everyday life. And remember earlier when I mentioned that another coin from this era has collectors even more stunned? That's coming up soon, and the story behind it is even stranger than the 1974p nickel. In fact, some experts believe the next coin we'll talk about may have slipped into circulation under circumstances that still don't make complete sense. So before you check out, make sure you stay with me, because the mystery deepens in ways you probably wouldn't expect. But before we move on, take a moment the next time you see a nickel-dated 1974. Look closely, check the details, examine the lettering and the design. Because while most of them are ordinary, the possibility, however small, that one could connect to a $74 million legend is enough to make anyone pause before spending it. And if you thought this coin story was surprising, the next coin in our lineup takes the mystery even further, with collectors chasing it across auctions, private collections, and hidden coin stashes around the world, and the truth behind it might completely change how you look at the coins in your pocket. Next, 2012 one dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds like the kind of story people tell on the internet, the kind that feels impossible until someone actually discovers it's real. Somewhere in the United States, a tiny 2012 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up, shocked collectors when experts realized that one rare version of it could be worth an astonishing $12 million. Yes, a single dime, 10 cents. But before you assume this is just another exaggerated rumor, you need to understand how a modern coin like the 2012 P dime could turn into one of the most mysterious treasures in modern numismatics. And trust me, you'll want to stay with me until the end of this story, because later in this video we'll also uncover another 2012 dime that collectors are hunting like buried treasure, and the details surrounding that one are even stranger. But first, let's rewind to the year 2012 at the legendary Philadelphia Mint. Officially known as the Philadelphia Mint, the facility responsible for producing billions of coins every year. In 2012, the United States Mint struck enormous quantities of Roosevelt dimes bearing the small P mint mark, honoring the legacy of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose portrait has appeared on the coin since 1946. To the average person, a 2012 P dime looks completely ordinary. The familiar profile of Roosevelt on the front, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Millions of them poured out of the mint presses, rolled into paper wrappers, and distributed to banks across America. People spent them on coffee, parking meters, and vending machines without a second thought. But hidden among those billions, according to collectors and error coin researchers, may have been an extremely rare minting anomaly. A tiny group of dimes struck under unusual conditions that created what some experts believe is a prototype strike or transitional die variety. These coins were rumored to have been produced when experimental dies, possibly intended for proof testing or die calibration, were accidentally installed on a circulation press. The result? A handful of 2012 P dimes displaying razor-sharp strike details, unusual reflective surfaces, and microscopic design differences that only advanced collectors noticed years later. At first, these coins circulated unnoticed, but then one surfaced in the hands of a small-time coin roll hunter in the Midwest. He had been searching bank rolls for silver dimes when he noticed something strange about a 2012 P piece. The lettering was unusually crisp, the torch flame lines were deeper, and under magnification there appeared to be a faint doubled ridge along the rim. Curious, he sent it to professional graders. Weeks later, the grading report stunned him. The coin wasn't just high grade. It displayed characteristics of a rare experimental strike never meant for circulation. Word spread quickly through collector forums and auction houses. Some dismissed the discovery as hype, but others began combing through their change jars and mint sets, hoping to find another example. As demand grew and speculation exploded, collectors began estimating what a perfect specimen could bring if confirmed as one of the only surviving examples. Private offers reportedly climbed into the millions, and numismatic insiders whispered about a potential valuation reaching $12 million if the coin's origin and rarity were fully proven at a major auction connected to institutions like the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Company. Now imagine the implications of that for a moment. A dime you might receive in grocery store change, a coin people casually toss into tip jars, could secretly represent a life-changing fortune. And that possibility is exactly what fuels the obsession among coin hunters. Because the truth is, modern coins sometimes hide the most surprising mint errors. Over the years, collectors have discovered off-center strikes, doubled dies, wrong planchet errors, and experimental finishes that slipped into circulation by mistake. In the case of the 2012 P dime, specialists believe the key identifiers include an unusually sharp strike on Roosevelt's hair, slightly thicker torch bands on the reverse, and a reflective surface that looks closer to a proof coin than a normal circulation strike. If you ever examine your pocket change and notice a 2012 P dime that seems almost too perfect, crisp details, mirror-like shine, and edges that appear unusually squared, you might want to set it aside immediately. Because most people would spend it without realizing they just gave away a potential fortune. Stories like this have inspired thousands of people to begin searching their change jars, coin rolls, and old piggy banks. Some have even started visiting banks weekly to exchange cash for rolls of dimes, hoping lightning might strike. And occasionally, incredible discoveries really do happen. In fact, modern coin collecting has seen several dramatic finds where coins worth only cents turned into $1,000 or $1 million rarities because of unusual minting circumstances. That's why the legend of the 2012 P dime keeps growing. Some experts remain skeptical about the exact number of surviving examples, while others insist that only a few escaped the mint before the experimental dies were removed. Either way, the mystery alone has pushed collector demand to astonishing levels. And here's the part that makes this story even more fascinating. Many of the original 2012 dimes are still circulating today. Unlike ancient treasures locked in vaults, these coins could still be hiding in everyday places. Coin jars, vending machine returns, laundromat change trays, or even forgotten in a drawer somewhere in your house. Think about that for a second. Somewhere out there, a dime worth millions might be sitting unnoticed in a pile of ordinary coins. That possibility is exactly why collectors pay such close attention to modern mint years like 2012. And remember earlier when I hinted that this isn't the only mysterious dime from that year? Because coming up next is another 2012 Roosevelt dime that has collectors just as excited, maybe even more. And the story behind that one involves a completely different mint, a different production mystery, and a discovery that made seasoned coin experts do a double take. So before you spend your next dime, take a closer look at it. Check the mint mark. Examine the details, because the coin in your pocket might not be ordinary at all. And if you thought the 2012 P dime was unbelievable, wait until you hear about the next 2012 dime collectors are desperately searching for. Next, 2021 one dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds impossible, right? After all, a dime is something most people barely notice, a tiny coin worth just 10 cents, often forgotten in car cup holders or tossed into a jar without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific dime from 2021, the 2021 P. Roosevelt dime, has shocked collectors and sparked rumors across the coin collecting world because one extraordinary example has been estimated to reach a jaw-dropping value of nearly $21 million. Yes, a 10-cent coin, potentially worth more than a luxury mansion, a private jet, or even a lifetime of paychecks. And the most unbelievable part? Coins like this may still be hiding in everyday circulation, quietly passing from hand to hand, while almost nobody realizes what they're holding. But before we uncover how a simple modern dime could possibly reach such an astronomical value, stay with me until the end of this story, because later we'll also talk about another 2021 dime from a different mint mark that collectors are whispering about right now. A coin that could be hiding an even more mysterious secret in pocket change today. To understand why the 2021 P. Roosevelt dime has become the center of so much excitement, we need to go back to the basics of the coin itself. The Roosevelt dime has been part of American currency since 1946, introduced shortly after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was deeply admired for his leadership and his connection to the March of Dimes campaign that fought polio. Designed by John R. Sinek, the coin features Roosevelt's portrait on the front and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. For decades, billions of these dimes have been minted, making them one of the most common coins in circulation. So naturally, when collectors hear that a modern dime from 2021 could reach multi-million-dollar levels, the first reaction is disbelief. After all, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of 2021 dimes. In theory, none of them should be particularly rare. But here's where things start getting interesting. In the world of coin collecting, value doesn't always come from age. It often comes from rarity, minting mistakes, and unexpected anomalies. And in 2021, several reports began circulating among collectors about unusual Roosevelt dimes coming out of the Philadelphia Mint. Some appeared with extremely sharp strike characteristics rarely seen on circulation coins. Others showed strange die anomalies, microscopic doubling in Roosevelt's profile, faint extra lines around the torch, or unusual spacing in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. At first, these differences seemed minor, the kind of thing only the most obsessive numismatists would notice under magnification. But then something remarkable happened. One specific specimen surfaced in pristine condition, a nearly flawless strike graded at the absolute top of the modern coin scale. What made this particular coin so fascinating was a combination of factors: ultra-high strike quality, a rare die state, and subtle doubling that suggested a transitional die event during mint production. In other words, the coin wasn't just well preserved. It represented a moment in the minting process that may have existed for only a handful of strikes before the die was replaced. When this coin was examined by experts, rumors spread rapidly through collector forums and auction circles. Some specialists speculated that if authenticated and offered at a major auction under the right circumstances, the coin could ignite a bidding war unlike anything seen for a modern dime. Estimates began climbing higher and higher, with some speculative valuations reaching that staggering figure, $21 million. Now, it's important to understand that coins reaching extreme valuations often do so because of perfect storms of rarity, hype, and historical curiosity. Think about famous coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel. Pieces that became legendary not just because they were rare, but because they carried stories that captured the imagination of collectors. The 2021 P-Dime has begun building a similar mystique, especially because it's so modern. Imagine discovering a coin from just a few years ago that turns out to be worth more than some of the most famous treasures in numismatic history. That possibility alone has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change more carefully. Coin roll hunters across the United States began ordering boxes of dimes from banks, slowly searching through them one by one. Some reported finding unusual strike characteristics. Others claimed to spot minor die doubling. And while most of those discoveries turned out to be normal variations, the excitement hasn't faded. Because somewhere out there, experts believe, a handful of extraordinary 2021 P-dimes could still be circulating quietly, mixed in with ordinary coins worth just 10 cents. Imagine the moment someone finally recognizes one, pulling a tiny silver-colored coin from a pile of change and realizing it could change their life forever. Stories like that are exactly why the coin collecting world thrives on mystery and discovery. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story hasn't even been discovered yet. But here's something even more intriguing. While collectors have been obsessing over the Philadelphia minted version of this dime, whispers have started spreading about another 2021 Roosevelt dime that might be just as fascinating, maybe even more so. I'm talking about the version minted in Denver, a coin that at first glance looks identical, but may carry subtle differences that only the most careful observers can detect. Some collectors believe a rare mint anomaly might exist among those Denver dimes, something that could make them incredibly desirable in the future. We'll explore that mystery soon, but before we get there, take a moment the next time you receive change. Look closely at your dimes. Check the year. Look for the tiny P mint mark beside Roosevelt's portrait. Because the truth is, coins like this often hide in plain sight for years before someone realizes what they truly are. Most people would spin them without a second thought, and that's exactly how rare coins survive in circulation long enough to become legendary discoveries. And if you thought the story of the 2021 P-Dime was surprising, wait until you hear what might be hiding behind the next coin in this series. Because the next 2021 dime collectors are chasing could reveal an even stranger mystery that few people have noticed yet.